It's that time of the year again. Spooky time is finally upon us, and what a better time than now to start watching boogeyman movies until you can't fall asleep at night. If only there was a series with like 13 movies in it I could binge that I've never seen before. Oh, wait, what? Halloween the movie? Like the holiday? I've, believe it or not, never seen this before. Well, I figured it was time to change that, so this week me and my best friend set out on a quest, a 22-hour long quest to watch all 13 Halloween movies. Yes, that includes the new one that is supposed to end them all. Yeah, I know, but for real this time. This series has been rebooted and retconned more times than James Bond has. Well, actually, no, not really. That's an iceberg on its own for another day, but to say that I was underprepared for the giant marathon ahead of me was a huge understatement to say the least. Because I had no idea how complicated and confusing the timeline of Michael Myers and everything that third movie was, whatever that was, would be.
Someone made a colossal boo-boo.
I mean, after 22 hours of straight Halloween movies, I feel like an expert on the subject. Not to mention the 50 plus hours it'll take me to rewatch and edit everything for these videos. If you were even slightly interested in watching these for the first time, or even just curious what the hype over all these movies is, or even if the middle movies are any good, we are going to go over everything in this video from top to bottom, helping you dive into the world of Halloween. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Michael J, and I just sat down and watched all 13 Halloween movies so you don't have to. If you want to subscribe because I saved you 25 hours of your life, that's totally up to you. But keep in mind, it's totally free, it doesn't require much effort, and it really helps me out so I can keep making videos and saving you time. So subscribe if you want to live longer. I'm actually working on, well, hopefully it'll be out now, a full-fledged deep dive video on the entire Halloween series. So if you enjoy this video, turn notifications on so you don't miss the next one. It might be my biggest video yet. Because I had no idea there's so many different ways to watch the Halloween movies. The first, and obviously the easiest, is to just watch the first movie and be done with it. You can honestly watch this one and stop there. It's such a good standalone movie that it doesn't need all the other movies to be good. You can live off this movie alone and be completely satisfied.
I saw the boogeyman. I saw him outside.
There was nobody outside.
There was.
What did he look like?
The boogeyman.
For those of you that want more, there is a slew of ways that you could watch the rest. I think the next way you could watch the movies is simply watching the current and most recent reboots timeline, which includes the first Halloween movie and then the 2018 Halloween movie, or Halloween 11. I think the easiest way to talk about these films is by the number they were released in, the 2018 film being the 11th one in the series. But Michael, why do you say that? Why don't you just say them by their movie names? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because their official names are stupid. I don't know if I emphasized it enough or not, but this is one of the most confusing series to watch and understand as a whole.
Take me, but spare my friend! She's a virgin.
Got her phone number?
Not even considering all the different timelines in which reboots include which movies or not, but the titles alone just make zero sense. Did you know there are 3 Halloween movies just titled Halloween? If you're talking about them with a friend and you've both seen them all and you say Halloween, you are referring to 3 different movies. The original 1978 Halloween, the 2007 movie called Halloween, which is actually the 9th movie released, as well as the 2018 Halloween movie, which is the 11th movie we were talking about. It is so much easier to say Halloween 1, Halloween 9, and Halloween 11 to differentiate between them rather than trying to remember what year they were released or trying to describe what happens in them. And to top that off, there's 2 movies just called Halloween 2, the second one and then the 10th one. And then there's one called H20, and it's not the 20th movie. It's called Halloween 20 because it was made 20 years after the first movie. It's actually only the 7th movie in the series. So just fair warning, to keep things simple, we will be referring to them using this system based on the order of release. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. It's easier for my brain and it just makes sense. Now, like I was saying, you could watch just the recent reboot, which includes Halloween 1, Halloween 11, 12, and 13, which just came out in theaters. This retcons some pretty big things though, but it's able to live in its own world and does a pretty good job at doing so. It's also the next easiest way to watch the series without dedicating a full 23-hour day, not including bathroom breaks, to watch all the movies, because that is the final way I would recommend watching them. If you want more than just the recent movies, or if you're just curious about all the middle movies like I was, go ahead, sit down and watch all of them. Just be prepared for them to be really confusing, which honestly, this is where I'm going to try to step in and help here. To better understand what I mean, let's take a look at the timeline for the series, just so you have an idea of which movies work together and which ones have nothing to do with anything, because honestly, that alone is one of the most confusing parts of the entire series. Now, we start off with Halloween 1, of course. This one is included in the majority of movies. You say, wait, Michael, how is this not included in all the movies? It's the first one. It doesn't make sense. Why? I don't know. Moving on, we have the second Halloween movie. It released 3 years later and is a direct addition to the first movie. It takes place the same night. In fact, it actually starts the movie off with replaying the last 10 minutes of the first movie. It shows what happens at the house, Michael getting shot and then Laurie being sent to the hospital, and then the movie exists at the hospital that night, sending Michael back to kill Laurie and her running around surviving while all the hospital staff get killed off. In my opinion, this was a great first sequel. These two movies can exist alone and be phenomenal. Halloween 2 is a pretty big movie to be included or not in the timeline simply because this is the movie that they reveal that Laurie is actually Michael Myers' younger sister.
That girl, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister.
And she was there that night when he was 6 and killed his family. This means that Michael is coming after Laurie so much because she's the last member of his family still alive. He needs to kill her off before this whole thing is complete. That's why he comes back each Halloween to try to kill her. But there's timelines where they retcon Halloween 2 and only include the first movie, which means that in this world, Laurie is not Michael Myers' little sister. She's just some random babysitter he has an obsession with, and that's why he tries to kill her consistently for 40 years. Honestly, no idea why they wanted to cut this out. It's kinda dumb. Him needing to kill her as the last member of his bloodline makes way more sense rather than him being obsessed over her because of no reason. Because Dr. Loomis brought them together or something, and Laurie is the catalyst for his curiosity. I prefer Laurie being his sister. It makes his reasoning a little more believable. Now, Halloween 3. This movie I would just tell you to completely forget about if all the other movies didn't include Easter eggs from this movie. Basically, they put the masks that they used to blow up all the kids in this movie in a bunch of the other movies. But overall, this movie has nothing to do with any of the other movies. The only time you can see anything remotely Michael Myers related is in this scene. Here, I'll let it play out in full for you.
Hey, Charlie, can we have another station?
You got it. The Immortal Classic, followed by the big giveaway at 9, brought to you by...
Yeah, that's it. This movie merely exists in a world where the first Halloween is actually a movie. And that's it. It has nothing to do with Michael Myers or Laurie Strode. It's a completely separate standalone horror movie. And the reason for this is originally John Carpenter, the director of the first Halloween, never wanted to use Michael Myers past the first movie. He wanted him to be a one and done deal that existed in his own movie and that's it. But after the first one overperformed so well, they convinced him to make a second one, which he did with the intention of concluding the story of Michael Myers, more so than he did the first time around so he could move on and tell other stories. He wanted to use Halloween the series to make one-off movies, all completely different Halloween-themed stories, and let Myers stay alive just in those two. My, how the turntables. This movie performed so freaking badly that the studio was forced to bring Michael Myers back in Halloween 4. Originally, it was going to be a ghost story, but nope, not anymore. 10 years later, Michael Myers returns to Haddonfield. This will follow the original timeline, as in the one that the majority of the early movies follow. This movie picks up 10 years after the first movie with Michael Myers waking up from a 10-year coma and escaping during being transferred to somewhere as per usual. Jamie Lee Curtis is actually not in this movie or the next couple. Laurie Strode exists off screen, but the movie is centered around the daughter that she had, Jamie Lloyd, which is Michael Myers' niece that he is now after for the next 3 movies. Honestly, this was a great movie. It was a great way to start the next 3 series arc that is centered around Laurie's daughter. This one easily keeps up with Halloween 1 and 2 intensity-wise, and the new characters work well, I think. This one ends with Michael Myers being obliterated by a police force and falling into a pit to die, and the next movie, Halloween 5, literally does the same thing that 2 does, and you rewatch the ending of the previous movie to start this one off. I absolutely love it when Halloween movies do this. It makes me feel like I'm watching just one big movie. Keep in mind, Halloween 5 is not nearly as good as Halloween 4, but at least there's still some continuity. Unfortunately, Halloween 5 bites off a little bit more than it can chew. They try introducing so much new lore and cogs of the machine that they never explain that it can be a bit confusing at times. They reveal that Jamie has some sort of telepathic connection with Michael Myers, and she's become mute from the psychological trauma in the last movie. Michael escapes the pit and the dynamite they threw down to kill him and goes into a coma for a year, waking up a day before Halloween to try to kill his niece again. It sucks that this movie had some bad elements to it, like constantly playing dumb cartoon sounds every time these dumb cops are on screen.
All clear.
Nothing above, nothing below.
I'm so embarrassed.
It's what we're here for.
Rescue cats.
Find dogs.
That's our job.
And we love it.
Or introducing this random man in black who blows up the police station in the end, freeing Michael, but never gets addressed. And the teens in this movie are so obnoxious, it makes it so hard to watch.
It feels creepy.
But the movie's intense moments are so good. I will get into it more in the next video because it was so good, but the second half is what saves this movie. There's a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad.
Fortunately, we're lousy cops. Sorry.
Next, in the final movie in this timeline is Halloween 6. This movie was meant to conclude the Jamie Lloyd arc, which it does, but in concluding her, she has a baby. Also, they leave it up to you to fill in the gaps, but apparently the man in black abducts Jamie and Michael Myers at the end of the last movie and has been keeping them prisoner under the sanitarium in his secret cult lair. Yeah, this one is a bit out there, but Paul Rudd's in it.
I need to see a doctor.
What seems to be the problem?
It's my baby. There's been an accident.
What kind of accident?
Get me a doctor now!
Yeah, I think the only reason I didn't hate this the entire time I watched it is because I was so distracted that Paul Rudd was in this one. They introduced voices that Michael heard that night when he was 6, and apparently that's the reason he killed his family.
Michael heard a voice?
It told him to kill his family.
They introduced Tommy, who Paul Rudd plays, well, actually reintroduces him. He's the boy Laurie was babysitting during the first attack in Halloween 1. Tommy believes Michael Myers was inflicted with Thorn, which is a cult curse that makes you kill all your family on Halloween, and they spend the whole movie playing keep away because they think Jamie's new baby will be Michael's final kill. Long story short, they try to say that they've been studying Michael for years at the cult, trying to clone his evil, and Jamie's baby was a success in doing so. It's probably for the best that this arc ended here. After this crazy movie, they thought it was time to bring Jamie Lee Curtis back and to reboot the series in hopes of it living on past that last atrocity. This Halloween 7 starts a new timeline that includes Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, meaning that Laurie is still Michael's sister in this reboot. It takes place 20 years after the first Halloween movie, and honestly, it knocks it out of the ballpark. This is such a good Halloween movie to watch. I was really impressed that Curtis's first time back was such a good comeback. I was expecting them to take a little time before figuring it out, but nope, they hit the nail on the head. I love this one. I gotta say, the mask was a little different though. I don't know if the actor's head was too small or if the eye holes were in the wrong place, but you could see his entire eyebrows in this movie, and I couldn't stop looking at it throughout the entire movie. But the fights and the jump scares are really good. This one sets up Laurie having faked her death and started using a fake name to avoid Michael for 20 years, and he broke into Loomis's old study and learned that she's alive. The entire movie is good, but the second half is great. It is so crazy. This is one of the gems you get to see if you choose to watch all of the movies. Unfortunately, this is the only gem for a while. The only reason I didn't recommend watching this timeline at the beginning of the video is because of how bad the sequel to this is. I absolutely hate it and have no idea why they did it. Halloween 8 is so stupid.
I said, what you looking at me like that for? Huh? You don't get it? You don't get it? Go do your job. Go ahead, scoop, skedaddle.
You know what? Even if you were watching this timeline, just don't watch this movie. It basically decides to rewrite the ending of the last one, which was really good, and completely take the rug out from under it and put Laurie in a mental hospital before killing her off 15 minutes into the movie. I don't know how or why Curtis said yes to this, because my jaw was on the floor from here on until the end of the movie. I hate to say it, but Halloween movies have a consistent track record of making a great first movie in a reboot or timeline, and then everything after goes downhill from there. The entire movie is about some random people filming an internet horror show in the Michael Myers house, and he comes back and kills everyone. This is so stupid. The first 10 minutes are so good, enough to actually get you invested to sit and watch this story unfold for another hour and a half, and then they just press the big red X and kill off Laurie. I'll go into it much more in the longer video because they actually had something here and they turned around and did the worst possible thing for this movie. And I would say thankfully they did another reboot after this movie, but honestly, this new timeline is my least favorite. Rob Zombie takes over the series, and instead of just branching off from the first movie in the series, He just remakes it, like you are literally watching the same movie but worse in every way. Halloween 9 tries to rewrite the Michael Myers story and recast Loomis and makes him so annoying and just an awful character overall. The acting is so bad in these, Michael Myers always has his mask off, the camera shake makes these so nauseating to watch, and they're both 2 hours long. Nobody asked for these. The only thing that saves Halloween 9 is the end climactic scene is good. It's the one part that's different from the first movie that they didn't copy, and it's the best part. There's so many unnecessary gross things they put in these two movies that we just don't need to see. The second one, Halloween 10, has a hillbilly spin on it and feels like a completely different vibe from the first. In my opinion, this might be the worst movie out of the entire series. I wasn't just on the fence or neutral about it, I didn't like it the entire watch. They introduce a dream element to top off all the other cons it has, where Michael sees the ghost of his mother and his 6-year-old self, and a white horse. These movies still include that Laurie is his sister, and so that's his motives for going after her for 2 movies, but the movie itself is so obnoxious. The new Laurie is so annoying and just whines throughout the entire movie, and Michael Myers without the mask has some crazy nomad vigilante vibes. It just feels like a psycho killer movie with a touch of trippy ghosts. They shoot Michael in the end, and then they shoot Laurie in the end. Apparently she survives, and she gets locked away because she's now evil. I don't know, if you want to save 4 hours of your life, you won't miss much by not watching these. Thankfully, they rebooted again one last time, or so we think. Halloween 11 starts the new reboot, this Blumhouse timeline, and includes just the first Halloween movie, so Laurie is not actually Michael's sister in this one. In this, they make Laurie out to be almost a crazy lady living in isolation, preparing for the day that Michael Myers will return.
What? Gotcha! Jesus.
You're dead.
This movie basically says that after the first movie, Michael was institutionalized at the psychiatric hospital for 40 years, and of course, they try to transfer him and he escapes. Laurie has a daughter, Karen, in this movie, who has a daughter, Allison, giving Michael lots of targets to come after. They definitely try to almost ground these movies a bit more in modern day. They explore their relationship with their crazy grandma who can't move on from the bad night she had 40 years ago. This movie is so enjoyable to watch though. It's so grounded, it's so different, and it's still intense, and it ends with such a big bang. This movie just puts the nail in the coffin and goes to prove the point that the Rob Zombie movies were an awful choice. They should have just skipped those and went straight to making this timeline. Now, the second movie in this reboot, Halloween 12, is another one that bites off more than it can chew. After the success of the last one, they bring everybody and their mother back that was in the first movie, literally. They bring back Tommy again, the kid Laurie was babysitting. They bring back the deputy. They bring back one of Tommy's bullies from the original movie, this guy. They bring back Sheriff Brackett. They bring back the girl that Laurie was babysitting. They even bring back Dr. Loomis's assistant. This was just a giant reunion movie. Basically, they capture Michael in the last one, and this one picks up right after, which again, I really liked. It felt like one big movie. This movie definitely gives the town of Haddonfield the spotlight for once, which is a cool, refreshing take. It's just that everyone is so stupid in this movie. The first half is great, but as soon as crap hits the fan, all the people that you thought were going to be smart turn dumb so quickly. Michael Myers has mob fight scenes in this movie. Yeah, he kills almost 30 people. Literally a killing spree of him running around fighting like a vigilante. I think this film's biggest flaw is making all of the characters so consistently dumb in this movie. Now, last but not least is Halloween 13, which just came out, and honestly, it wasn't great. Michael Myers takes the back seat in this film and is replaced with a new kid who had an accident a year prior where he killed the kid he was babysitting. This movie definitely upped the gore and gross kills just in hopes of keeping that shock value with the audience. I mean, with time, we all get a little desensitized with the more we see. They just really went John Wick with these kills. It's just so weird to watch the final movie, the last of a 13 movie series, and the main character is barely in it. I'd say disappointing, if anything. The new kid is cool and all, but he doesn't further the story at all. The relationship Laurie built with her granddaughter over the last 2 movies is just thrown out the window, and Laurie goes back to being a crazy lady. I have a lot to say about this film, but I'm going to hold off on spoilers for the long video. I'm really curious to see if this really will be the last Michael Myers movie they make. They definitely ended this Blumhouse timeline, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see another movie in a new timeline in 2 or 3 years. But yeah, this series has 4 main timelines with 1 random movie and the 2 Rob Zombie remakes. And to be honest, I was surprised so many of the middle movies were as good as they are. Honestly, I loved watching the whole series minus the Rob Zombie movies. If I had to tell you the best ones to watch, it would be the first two movies 100%. These two are both so good. Next is the first two movies of the Jamie trilogy. The second half of Halloween 5 is so intense, watch it just for the crazy moments alone. Next is Halloween 7. This one is easily better than the Jamie movies. If you're not feeling that timeline, at least watch this one. And then also, the first movie in the Blumhouse timeline is really good. Definitely watch that. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. I hope that this explanation helped you better understand the series and how to approach watching these movies. If you don't want to watch these movies or already have seen them all, go watch my full breakdown and deep dive on these movies. There's so much more I want to unpack, and I need another video to talk about everything. Tell me what your top 3 movies are in the comments, and I will see you over in the next video. Peace.